Hi, my friends. Welcome to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm DC Gomez, your host, and also an indie author. I'm thrilled you're joining me today for another fun interview with a passionate author. We're going to kick off this show with an exciting reading, so let's get started.
Hi there, I am Adele Ryan, which is a husband-wife pseudonym. I'm Adele. My husband is Ryan. He's not here right now because he is making sure my children are somewhere out of earshot of this amazing podcast. And I'm going to share with you guys today a little bit about my book, Smoke and Rubber. It is the first in series for a contemporary reverse harem romance, and it is about street racing and, of course, love and quite a lot of steaminess as well. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the first couple of chapters. Chapter 1. Despite being taller than the average woman, I still can't reach the top shelf in my new walk-in closet. Box of old photographs in hand, I stretch onto my tiptoes and try to balance it along the edge before pushing it the rest of the way. All hope is shattered when I miss my mark and the box dumps forward, contents pouring over my head and scattering around my feet. My hands grip the sides, fingers digging into the cardboard, and my eyes blur. Arms trembling, I chunk the box into the depths of the closet before my legs give way and I fall to my knees at the center of the mess. For a heartbeat, the buildup of tears comes as a relief. My hazy vision prevents me from reliving each memory as I desperately pick up the pictures one by one and stack them neatly. As soon as the photographs are in a carefully organized semicircle of small piles in front of me, the dam barricading my tears begins to weaken. Every carefully placed stick and stone, held together by the perfectly mixed mud, springs a leak. Another heartbeat later, the entire thing completely bursts. When I blink the tears away, Jude is sitting across from me, leaning against the wall, with his head back as he stares up toward that damn shelf and tries to curb his own emotions. The box I had thrown in my moment of anger and frustration is beside him, every picture now carefully placed inside. Whether the cause of his arrival is due to my muffled crying, or because he was somehow feeling the negative energy of my grief, I'm not sure. After my shuddering breaths and sniffles no longer fill the tight space, he adjusts, and our identical dark brown eyes meet, an equally identical heartbreak hanging silently between us. That fleeting moment is when his resolve ends. Jude leans forward, clasps my face between his hands, and gives me a kiss on top of my head before standing and leaving me to continue grieving alone, something we've both done in isolation quite often lately. Half of my heart aches the moment my brother exits, wishing he'd stay just a bit longer, hug me a bit tighter, break alongside me a bit more. The other half lightens, knowing his absence means we won't talk about our father, rejoices that words of his untimely and horrific death won't be exchanged. Wiping the wetness from my cheeks, I finally stand, rather than trying yet again and failing to hide the memorabilia on the shelf. I pick up the box and tuck it safely away on the floor in the far corner. With a final shaky breath, I leave the closet, ready to unpack the next box. When I step back into my bedroom, movement in the doorway causes me to startle. Damn it, Porter. You scared me. My hand presses against my chest, hoping to quell the insistent pounding. Jude's best friend, longtime family business partner, my ex-boyfriend, and our new roommate, enters. I retreat backward. Jude asked me to come check on you, he states. Again, he moves forward, and I take another step back. That doesn't stop him, though. When the center of my back hits the closet edge, the corner of his lips tick upward in accomplishment. I would like to point out that Jude was just here checking on me himself, but I choose a safer response instead. Thank you. I'm fine, just adjusting, you know. Shoving my hands into the pockets of my jeans, I drop my gaze. Porter drags a finger across my forehead and brushes the hair out of my eyes before slipping it under my chin. With slight pressure, he reroutes my attention from the ground to his cold blue eyes. Always lying, he whispers. You know you don't have to do that with me. The rest of his fingers splay over my jaw, his grip tightens, and his mouth comes to my ear. Voice lowering to a mere breath, he threatens, I know all your secrets anyway, and you'll do well to never forget that. Jude didn't send Porter in here to check on me. He sent himself in here. Jude must have mentioned my little breakdown to him, and he took it upon himself to make sure he's available, should I need a distraction from my heartache. Not only does Jude have no clue Porter is in here, imposing and threatening, there are a number of other things he is in the dark about, too. Like, for instance, the detail where his best friend had been fucking his baby sister ever since the day she turned 18, and he could legally do so without being caught with his pants down harassing an underage girl. Not that it didn't stop him from conditioning me while I was young and vulnerable the few years preceding my 18th birthday. Nothing much stops Porter from getting what he wants. Right now appears to be no different. Now, we're going to try this again. The tone and pitch of his voice returns to normal, and his grip on my chin loosens. You miss your dad. His fingertips spread over my cheek and push into my hair near my ear. Hearing mention of my father instantly brings back all the emotions I had worked so hard to leave in a puddle on the closet floor. Let me help take your pain away, he whispers, dragging his thumb along my quivering bottom lip. A single tear drips from the corner of my eye as his mouth presses against mine and his tongue pries its way inside. Fortunately for him, I'm just this side of stupid enough to let him get his way where I'm concerned, because he's right about one thing at least. He knows my secrets, and I'll do whatever it takes to make sure they stay just between the two of us. Chapter 2. Morning! Jude gives me a quick kiss on the top of my head while lifting one of my hands and brushing the handle of a hot mug against my fingers. Sleep well the first night in your new room? I accept his offering, but place the mug onto the counter just long enough to hop on top before picking it back up and cupping it with both palms. Before committing to conversation, I lift the warm drink to my face, tilt my nose over the rim, and inhale. I hum appreciatively, blowing into the mug with my exhale. Yeah, I slept fine. Once I get done unpacking everything, it'll feel more me, though. How about you? Jude shrugs, his tired eyes meeting mine as he leans against the kitchen counter beside me. Porter and I stayed up late trying to find some information on the local street scene. My eyes roll toward the ceiling. I should have known you chose to move us across the country just for car stuff. Jude chuckles, taking a sip of his own beverage. Gotta pay the bills somehow, Remy. Would you rather I work a 9 to 5 at a real estate office or pull overtime at that pizza place around the corner? Yeah, maybe. One of Jude's dark brown eyes lifts. There's no way my brother's at the point yet to where he'd be willing to become a blue-collar worker. Look, I guess, I don't know. Maybe I've hoped we'd leave all that back in California? Jude sighs and places his mug behind him before turning on his hip to face me. He squeezes my knee and gives me a soft smile. Our inheritance won't last forever. The vehicle industry is where the money is for us. It's what we know. Right now, Porter and I are not in a position to change our wheelhouse. Why waste time topping pies when we can go ahead and start building a new empire here, But picture the possibilities. I turn on the dramatics, extending my arms outward to indicate the hypothetical scene in front of us. Jude Delancey, the Gulf Coast's premier real estate agent. Take a ride and he'll show you inside. Jude huffs and picks his drink back up. Just think, billboards everywhere featuring you and your car. Right next to those scantily clad bathing suit models. Hell, I bet you could even get one of them to spread open on the hood for you. That might bring in a different type of client, though. You'd have the men trying to figure out a way to get inside the model, while their wives would be looking to get inside their new homes. Jude laughs, and I hate to bottle it up. so I can pop the top and listen to it any time I need a reminder of what life was like before the madness. Wow, just wow. You've really thought this through, huh? What? I'm offended. Bro, that was just off the cuff. Want to see what else I can come up with? I place my drink down, clap my hands together, and rub my palms in a circle. Jude shakes his head and turns to the sink to rinse out his mug. Our sibling moment is instantly ruined when Porter enters the kitchen. Strawberry blonde hair sticking up all over the place, eyes still glazed over with the remnants of sleep. He ignores us and heads straight to the cabinet closest to the refrigerator and selects a box of cereal before collecting the milk. Jude, being the overall great guy he is, pulls a bowl out of one of the unpacked moving boxes on the floor and hurries to clean it off before a half-asleep Porter starts pouring his breakfast all over the kitchen island. He's been known to do it before. Porter pops open the cereal and unrolls the plastic bag. Jude slides the bowl onto the table just as Porter begins to tilt the box. Cereal pieces clink into the glass bowl, and my brother lets out a sigh of relief, throwing me a wink. I press my lips together to stifle the oncoming chuckle. Now that my drink is cool enough to consume, I pick it back up and take a sip, reveling in the warmth as it moves down my throat and pools in my belly. As soon as Jude is done catering to Porter's inability to function in the morning, he returns to my section of the counter again. So, joking aside, he starts, darting a wary glance in my direction. We want you on the payroll. I am committed to taking the next sip of my drink when he reveals this information, and instead of flowing smoothly, the liquid catches in my throat. My cheeks puff out to compensate, preventing the attempted swallow from spewing everywhere. One of my hands comes to my mouth as a precautionary measure while I attempt choking down the obstruction. Only after I'm confident the liquid is safely inside me do I gasp in a recovery breath. You want me in the business. To what? Be your bookkeeper? Fuck that. I'm not about to sit behind a desk all day either. Jude presses his lips together and narrows his dark eyes at me. Don't pretend like it's not in your wheelhouse, too. I throw my head back and mumble a string of expletives at the ceiling. You know more about vehicles than most men do. Plus, you're prettier than we are. We don't want you to keep books, Remy. We want you out on the field, recruiting. Porter will hire one of those billboard models looking to make a buck on the side if we need a bookkeeper. Porter rises from the dead, deciding this is the time to voice his business insight. Recruiting? He scoffs. Try telling her the truth. I raise an eyebrow at my brother, who typically has no trouble telling me the truth. Jude leans forward and slaps Porter upside the head. It's called conversation, idiot. Maybe you should try it sometime. He then turns to me and curves his eyebrows inward. I was getting there, swear. The very fact that Jude is so honest and open sits heavy on my shoulders as Porter turns around, leans against the island, and his blue eyes alight on every inch of me as he casually adjusts his morning glory. Taking another sip of my drink, gaze falling to the liquid inside, the small ceramic mug becomes a temporary barricade to hide behind. Jude continues his explanation. We need help looking for a certain underground street racing club. Well, color me curious. You mean the infamous Jude Delancey and Porter Davis are stuck? I gasped, bringing the mug to my lap. Since we moved from an area well known for their underground street racing where both Jude and Porter had been involved in the scene, this indeed comes as a shock. Look, you know Dad didn't want me involved in all this stuff. That was your calling, not mine. Don't they use forums like the other clubs tend to do? Surely finding them shouldn't be too difficult. Plus, after you secure enough meetings with other players in the industry, someone is bound to mention racing. Right. Someone will eventually say something, but that could take time. Too much time spent on this is what we're hoping to avoid. And yeah, they use a forum, every serious street racing club does, but Porter and I can't afford to keep spending all day and night dealing with busy work when there are other things that need to be accomplished. So, we're hoping you'll take on the gig. Try to poke around a bit and learn about the area. Most street racers are closer to your age anyway. And what if I find them? I ask. Porter's gaze continues to touch every inch of my bare skin, drifting between my legs where the mug rests. Realizing my mistake, I cross my previously open legs at the ankle and place the mug beside me instead. Well, you dig deeper. Figure out what they're about, how much money they bring in, where they tend to meet, where they race, and who might be looking to branch out. Jude elaborates, and every word that falls from his mouth adds another pound of weight to my already heavy shoulders. So instead of creating your own club, you're, what, planning a takeover? I huff, crossing my arms over my chest. See, Porter pipes in. Told you she was fucking perfect for the job. Oh, I see. So this is Porter's genius idea. Growing up in the shadows of the vehicle industry, I know just enough to understand where this is headed. As for field experience, though, I always steer clear of that part. We're not playing with toy cars anymore, Remy, Jude says with a sigh. Months. We'll be broke in months. Go big or go home, right? And we sure as hell don't want to go home. Porter's gaze finally leaves my body, moving to my eyes instead. I was just telling Jude last night that there was no way you'd turn down the job, not when having to work 40-plus-hour weeks is your other alternative. Porter knows damn well I would work a minimum wage job any day over doing the underhanded shit they're proposing. But his first sentence underlined what he really meant. I'm not being given the option to decline. Chapter 3. The words and images on the computer screen start morphing into swirls of colors. I blink fast to clear my rapidly cloudy vision, but it only helps for a couple clicks of the mouse before the images blur again. Porter and Jude were right. This apparent street racing club is well hidden, an indicator, unfortunately, that they are likely a significant player, if not the main player, in the local car scene and underground street racing circles. What's even more curious is that I can't find anything hinting towards smaller clubs either. It's almost as though this invisible entity has completely monopolized the area's recreational vehicle clubs in general. Challenge accepted, boys. You can try to hide, but I'll find you. Almost 90% of the time, a lack of information means there's something big hidden. The trick is finding the tinder. I lean back in the office chair, close my eyes, and stretch my arms over my head, yawning. When my eyes open again, they land on the framed panoramic print Jude has strategically hung above his multi-screen computer setup. Lips curving downward, my gaze falls on the happy teenage girl and her doting father. As soon as Jude took the picture, he swore he would print it big and keep it in his office. He never did, until now. It was my 16th birthday. Dad and I were standing around my first and only vehicle. I have refused to drive anything else since the day he gifted it to me. Ride smart, Remy. There's no way in hell I'd given your brother a motorcycle when he was 16. I'm doing this because I trip. A rock lodges in my throat and I swallow hard, shaking the image and conversation out of my mind. So much has changed since that day. Now, all that remains is a broken girl and her trusty bike. These past few days without her, while the transport company takes their sweet time delivering our vehicles, have only served to worsen the agony festering in my heart. With a sigh, I drop my gaze, refusing to allow the memory to weasel its way back into my heart any more than it already has. Instead, I lean my elbows on each side of the multicolored keyboard, rub the blur out of my eyes, and refocus on the screen. One discussion after another eventually led to a particular forum. Surprise, surprise. Certain this is the one, I pore over every thread and every comment a dozen times. The only thing that seems even remotely odd is a post that says, "Grub for clothes." Every time I scroll through, my eyes catch on that one. Its randomness, in addition to how many thumbs-up reactions it has received since being posted just a few days ago, doubles my curiosity. The poster's profile is a drawing of a black crow on a white background. Desperate for some sort of progress, I open a new browser tab and type in Crow Gulf Coast on a hunch. Much to my surprise, the first listing that comes up is for the Crow Bar and Grill. Leaning back in the chair, I let out a heavy breath and tap my fingers against the armrest. Grub for clothes. Grub for clothes. Grub for clothes. Since it's a combo bar and restaurant, I quickly surmise grub must indicate the restaurant part, which, of course, segues to the thought that perhaps by close they plan to meet when the restaurant closes, which isn't all unusual for car clubs. My eyes track to the top right corner of the screen where the time and date display. Today is the 3rd, tomorrow is the 4th. Perhaps the number 4 in the post means they are meeting tomorrow. The sound of my hands clapping together once echoes throughout the partially empty room. Hell, even if I'm wrong, at least it gives me something to do. After all, how does that saying go? Where there's smoke, there's Rubber.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inside the Minds of Author. Today we have the amazing Miss Adele Ryan. By the way, half the team of Adele Ryan that I just learned is a husband-wife combo, which I'm kind of excited about this, and we're going to talk some more about that. Welcome, Madam. How are you today?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it.
I'm so excited you're here with us, and we're going to just jump right into this. We're going to jump into Smoke and Rubber. I want you to kind of tell us a little bit about what Rover harem is, and then kind of jump in. Where did this story come from?
Okay, two very excellent questions. Reverse harem to some is subjective. However, I think to most reverse harem readers would agree that it is 3 plus male suitors and 1 main female lead character. So there could be 3 at the minimum. And of course, with some paranormal romances, we can see 9, 10, 11 guys in the harem. One of the rules is that they are strictly dedicated to the main female lead. Now, there are several in the genre that branch out to where some of the males in the harems will have relationship with each other as well, assuming it's okay with the female lead. I want to say for the most part, it's just the traditional male-female with more than 3 males in the grouping. Smoke and Rubber was actually not intended to be written. I started the genre and started my career writing a near future speculative sci-fi romance that takes place about 20 years from now and has a lot to do with DNA and a corrupt government, and it's kind of like dystopian-esque, pre-apocalyptic. And I had honestly thought after writing that series that sci-fi was going to be my genre. That was going to be what I dabbled in most. I went on to write a paranormal about fallen angels, giants, demons, things of that sort. And one thing that all of those books had in common, the paranormal and the sci-fi, was that they were relatively big. We're looking at like the definition of novel length is usually around 40,000 words and up. And so all of my books were 80,000, between 80,000 and 100,000 words. So I got to a point where I wanted to write something kind of racy and fast, pun intended, right? And something that wasn't long. My sci-fi series was 5 books. My paranormal is intended to be 3. I wanted something relaxed, I guess. It's hard for me to put the word to what I'm trying to explain with Smoke and Rubber. But basically, I ended up reaching out to other writers in the genre, and I was like, how do you not have 50 different subplots in your stories? What do I do? Because that's why my series are long. I've got all these little twists and turns and these sub arcs, in every character's stories and things that I interweave throughout the series. Somebody told me or educated me that I just needed to not have so many plot bunnies. I needed to stick with one and just go with that one. And so I stomped out of the bedroom and I went up to Ryan and I said, I need an easy story to write about. Go. And he says, write about cars. Those are sexy. And I went, oh, hey, I could actually do that. Okay. Of course, the steamy romance author in me had plenty of images in my head of how cars can be sexy in a relationship aspect. So after that moment, it literally consumed me. I could not stop talking, thinking, dreaming about it for about a week. Every conversation that Ryan and I had revolved around this simple, quote unquote, story. And then I started writing, and the characters were just so incredibly dynamic that I fell in love with them. And anyone who's read this book and reviewed it, they tend to say the same things in the review. The characters, they just steal the show in this story. But that's how Smoke and Rubber came to be. It was a kind of a knee-jerk thing, and I had no idea it was going to do as well as it did, but it does. It's gone over very, very well, and people have really gravitated toward the street racing concept.
So is Smoke and Rubber a standalone novel? Is this part of a series?
So it was supposed to be a duology. As I had said, I wanted it to be easy. My husband called me out on it immediately. He read the first few chapters. He's like, oh, there's no way you're going to keep this as two books. And I'm like, you hush. And sure enough, I've just finished the second book, and we're definitely going to have a third. So it's looking to be a trilogy at this point. But the books themselves are a tad bit shorter than the books in my other series. So they're still quite fast paced and easy to read.
What is your definition of shorter? Let's put some words into this, because this is kind of going, I'm like, okay, Adele, what do you mean by shorter? Are we looking at 60 instead of 80? What's your word count? Be honest with us.
That's exactly right. This is book one sits right just above 60,000 words. Yes.
For our readers, let's be honest, it's shorter compared to Adele's other books. Put things in perspective. It's not that much shorter.
Right. It is shorter compared to my other books, but it's still well above the minimum novel length. Yes.
Yeah. You're still getting a novel.
Yeah.
Per Adele's standards, it's just a tad bit shorter than her others. I needed to clarify that.
I was just talking to one of my alpha readers the other day about the plot. Because of the fact that I extended it to 3 books, I ended up having to extend some of those sub arcs. I couldn't keep the bunnies caged. I had to let them go a little bit so I could make 3 books out of it. It's definitely not forced, but it got a lot more intense. The story arcs got a lot more intensive, and so there was much more meat to them at that point.
Not as short as you thought they were going to be. But I'm glad it's a little lighter. I like that part. It's a little lighter compared to what you were writing.
Right.
Definitions in the table, because right now I'm like, Adele, I think we need to break this down. You said you are a husband-wife too. What does that mean in terms of writing? How does that work?
Well, it was very loose at first, but he essentially became an alpha or beta reader with my first series. That was the Her Reverse Genius, my sci-fi near future speculative. It's hard to say 10 times fast. And he read every single word, helped edit it, made many, many comments, made sure my men sounded like men. He was there the entire journey for that series. And that's how we became a team. And then, of course, moving on into Smoke and Rubber, he was the one that came up with the idea. He helped me figure out what the climax and things like that would be, or the problems and the solutions and so forth. He doesn't do any writing, but I don't feel like that undermines the partnership at all, because there's just so much more that goes into it aside from the actual typing things out.
Absolutely, because you do have somebody that you can bounce off ideas. When you decided to start looking at genres, I got this one just kind of came to you and you said, okay, I'm going to try this. What are your favorite genres? How did you decide which ones to write in?
So reading came to me much later in life. Actually, I had gotten very, very sick about 3 years ago and was bedridden for quite some time. And I started reading a lot more, and my go-to was generally paranormal. I did love to read things about vampires and angels and things like that. I also loved to read time travel romance. That was kind of my thing back then. Outlander comes to mind. Loved that series when it came out on television. I was just over the moon excited. And then one day I was looking for another paranormal romance read, and Trickery by Jamin Eve and Jane Washington popped up on my suggested reads on my Kindle. I want to say in the blurb and in the title, there's no verbiage that indicates it's a 3+ male romance, but it did sound interesting because there were numerous godlike entities and kind of a quirky female. So I picked it up and I read it. Absolutely fell head over heels for this book that had these 5 really yummy guys, and they were all just doting on this extremely lucky woman that I was really jealous over. And then there was the dynamic where 2 of the guys kind of worked in tandem with their magic and things like that, which brought it to a whole nother level. I was done for at that point. And so I woke up one day and I had already kind of had a story idea in mind, like from years and years ago. And I woke up that day, I was like, that's what my story's missing. It's missing several sexy men. I started writing that day, which is so funny because today is September 12th when we're doing this podcast. And the day
Yes.
that I wrote my first words was September 13th, 2017.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I just connected that. So that's really cool.
Happy
That's
anniversary.
yeah, thank you so much. And I haven't looked back since. I started writing Reverse Harem, continued reading it for sure, and it's just kept on going. Kind of like how men build in a harem, they just keep coming.
Like the way your journey happened, and you just decided, hey, I'm going to make this journey, this transition, this leap of faith, and you haven't looked back, which is exciting.
Yeah.
So right now you got multiple series. Do you prefer writing in series, or do you prefer maybe try a standalone per se?
Well, since I cannot keep anything simple, I am not convinced I am capable of writing a standalone at this point. So I'm going to go with door number one and say I'm definitely a series writer.
Hey, it's all good. We all need it, and a lot of our readers enjoy it. They truly enjoy that process of it. So you have an amazing career so far. For somebody who's just been writing for 3 years, which is amazing. You are doing so many incredible things. What keeps you motivated, my friend? How do you do it?
I'm naturally work driven, always have been. I think we were traveling not too long ago and sat in the vehicle, and my boys, I have three sons, were asking me what jobs I had had growing up. My husband rolled his eyes. He's like, oh, here we go. We started talking about them, and I think we counted 22 jobs because there were times when I was a teenager that I would work five jobs at a time. I think that was my max at one point, but I had like five jobs at one time. And I've always just been a busybody like that. I'm driven in that way, and then add my organizational and routine tendencies. When it comes to the business aspect and the writing aspect of being motivated, it's kind of just intrinsic in me. Like I need to do something each day. It's not hard for me to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and flip the computer screen up and get to work.
Okay, Adele, you need no motivation. You're your own internal energizer bunny. That is amazing. Do you happen to have had a book when you were coming up that said, this is one thing has helped me with my writing career?
I mean, I think there are a lot of stepping stone books. Of course, I want to say Trickery and the Curse of the Gods series by Jaime and Eve, and even Jane Washington is one. And it's not so much an educational book, if that's what you're asking for, but it's the one that jump started my love for the genre and desire to write in the genre. As far as educational ones go, I love books like Getting Things Done. There is the story structure method by Larry Brooks, and I actually have a couple of blog posts where I had created workbooks and things based on his method.
What is some of the lessons you have learned in balancing your writing as well as your business?
That I'm stronger at the business aspect of it, and some days I have to actually force myself to write.
Oh,
I
that
love
is very unique.
I love writing. I do love writing, but like say I'm having a bit of a block. I always say that I don't get blocked, but I've learned that I'll find myself working extra hard all of a sudden and unable to write because, oh, I have this, this task list that I can get accomplished. And I've realized that that's actually how my brain translates a writer's block. And then I realize I'm like, oh, I know why I've not been writing. That's because I'm stuck on this scene. I've doubled back to adding more admin to my schedule.
I like the fact that the way you managed to escape getting stuck is getting more work done.
Yeah,
That is priceless. I'm like, go Adele. That is efficiency to the core.
I guess. I need to get the words in though.
As a writer, those are important. Those are something nobody else can do for you. So yes, you have to find that balance.
Yeah, and I've got some great friends in the industry, and they know that I am this way. One of my writer friends had taken it upon herself early on to work with me to get my hour of writing in at 5 o'clock in the morning every day so that I was actually writing and then I could do as much admin as I wanted to do. My cheerleader, like, you're going to write today, Adele.
We all need a little bit of encouragement, especially if you know I can get easily lost in the rabbit holes of admin work. That
Yeah.
is perfect. So Adele, tell us a little bit. We're going to switch gears a little bit. What makes you feel successful? Because you have so much going on.
You're asking all the hard questions.
It's okay. I'll have easy questions later, I promise.
You could have emailed me these first.
That's no fun.
Right. Okay, so let's see here. I'll be very honest. I definitely work well with praise, like a child. While I am doing all this admin work and creating these workflows and jumpstarting my business, it really is the readers that keep me writing and make me feel successful. As much as I'd like to be like many of the other writers who say, writing is my passion and I do it no matter what, I don't know that that statement is for me. It is my passion, but would I do it no matter what? I'm not so sure.
You're writing for people.
Yeah, and I am
Yeah.
writing for myself, absolutely. Like, I love my books. Of course, there's bias there because they're mine. I love my books and I love my characters, and I can still read my own work and just swoon. I'm writing for the readers. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That is an awesome understanding of yourself and knowing that if you're not making that connection with them and then coming back to you and telling you that they love your books, it doesn't have the same sense. So I love that perspective that you understand yourself that well.
Yeah, there are readers listening to this. Definitely go seek out your favorite authors and let them know how you feel, because even if they're not like me and don't necessarily thrive off the praise, we need to hear it. You see a lot in the indie author community where some authors are bullied and some readers leave reviews are unpleasant or make the authors upset, and we're human. We need that praise. Just like a child growing up and trying to thrive in that way, we definitely thrive off praise.
I usually tell people nobody wants to hear their baby's ugly. As the writer, oh, these are our babies. We don't want to hear that our baby's ugly. Everybody doesn't have to like their babies, but eventually, at least tell me the people who enjoy these books that you are connecting with me. So I totally agree.
Now, of course, there is benefit to constructive criticism, and I definitely absorb all that too because of the fact that I am a workaholic and I'm a perfectionist. So when there's constructive criticism involved as well, I'm like, ooh, how can I make my stuff better? Those sandwiches, those critique and praise sandwiches work as well.
That's a really good way of putting it. Praise, critique, sandwich. I like that combination. Tell us, madam, what are you working on? I know you're working on book 2 of Smoke and Rubber. What else do you have on the pot? Because I know you got more than one thing going on your plate.
Always. Book 2 of my Burnout series is with the editor right now. We're working on that. I have completely outlined and started writing book 3 already. I am also working on a co-write. I hope it's okay that I say that. I cannot tell you who it is with,
It's all good.
nor give any information as to what it's about. It is reverse harem, I can share that much. But we've been doing it for a good bit of time now, so I'm pretty sure it's going to stick. But that is another thing that we do on the daily. And then I have a few other story ideas that I'm starting to try to pan out. Nothing that I've gotten a real good solid foundation on yet.
You said you have a blog. Tell us a little bit about your blog as well.
Sure, yeah, it's on my website, adellryan.com, and I do have a blog. I actually tried to gear my blog toward other writers. So when I was first starting my blog, a lot of the topics have to do with the parts of the business or the parts of the writing that I struggled with in the beginning. Like, for example, one of my blog posts has to do with how to write faster. I mean, when I was writing Perfect, my first book, I was at a good solid 200 words per hour. Now, with Smoke and Rubber and Fuel and Fire, I'm at about 1,000 words per hour, which is a
Nice.
big jump. Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to get faster one day, but I also don't want to lose quality. For me, that's kind of like a difficult line to balance on. But that's a good example. I have a very quick article about how to write faster or websites to use to help increase your writing speed. I also have some more recent ones on different words to use instead of crutch words. Like, as authors, we say things like he smiled or they looked this way or, rolled his eyes, things like that we cling to and we use repeatedly over and over again in our books. And so I have some lists to share with writers for alternative words to use.
I will be checking out that list because I'm with you. I was like, every once in a while, I was like, what's another word for smile? Because God, everybody can't be smiling all day. Come on now.
Yeah, I think my characters shrug their shoulders quite often.
I picked up one recently. I was like, who shrugs? Like, why are we shrugging? What's up with this? I understand. I'm with you.
Yeah, my characters are just walking around in the story like Michael Jackson shrugging their shoulders.
What advice do you have, madam, for an up-and-coming author? You have an amazing website. The resources are great. What would you tell them if somebody came up to you and was like, what do I need? How do I start? What would you tell them?
Oh, this one's easy. I would tell them
Yes!
I would tell them what the experienced authors told me when I first started that I did not listen to. And that is just write and write fast. Don't worry if it's pretty or not. And that's hard coming from me because my readers and the authors that I work with know that I'm a very clean writer and I am like obsessed with the Chicago manual style. So like my stuff is going to be pretty accurate, in the final product, which isn't always, not a lot of indie authors use CMOS. So that's the unique thing to me as well. But, that doubling back, that's why I was writing 200 words an hour when I first started writing, is because I was so stuck on getting it right the first time. But then I learned as I started writing faster and faster, about midway through her Reverse Genius series, I found that website called For the Words, and this is on my list of how to write faster on my blog. And it's basically like a fantasy game where you type in the program and you kill monsters. But you have to type fast because if you don't, you'll run out of time and the monster will hurt you. So it sounds
Wow!
yeah, it sounds juvenile and silly, but I was like, me being a perfectionist and competitive, things like that, I was like, these monsters cannot kill me. I will not accept that as part of my fate. I would write faster in order to not be defeated by these fictional monsters. And my books, the story flow, pacing, and the drama in it was so much better. So much better. I mean, literally, my alphas and my betas could tell. She's like, wow, I finished that book fast. I couldn't stop reading it. I couldn't stop at a chapter heading. I had to keep going. This happens, about book 4 of my first series. It's even funnier because my first book in my second series, the first half of that book I actually wrote before I learned to write fast. So like the first half of the book is super slow paced. And then you get to the second half of the book and the second book in the series, and you just can zoom through it, and the excitement is there. And that's the advice that I would give to somebody. I would be like, get over yourself. Just write your story. Like, you legit can make it pretty. You might not want to because you just want to be done with your story when you're done writing the last words. And I get that. You can still make it pretty, but it's harder to change pacing and flow and the build and the excitement that you get naturally from speed writing, because your brain is telling the story in your head and you're just you're getting it out, and that's how people are going to read it. They're going to read it at the pace that you wrote it.
Such an awesome advice. I love it. I like the fact that you make the connection with how fast that you're writing to the pace that people are reading, because it builds that excitement.
Yeah, and I did not listen to that advice when I first started, so it took me 3 books.
Hard advice. Most of us, when we start out, we're thinking of like, okay, I should have a really polished document instead of putting the editor's hat after you're done.
Well, plus if you keep doing it, especially if you start out doing this speed writing technique, your presentation, your grammar, your sentence structure, things like that are going to get better over time as well, because you're going to be learning through the editing process on the back end. I'm doing the fast writing thing now, and at this point, my editor, she's been with me for every single book that I've written, just edited one of the chapters, and she didn't have to change much. And if she would have gotten when she got a hold of my first book, she red marked my entire book. It was not pretty. And that's the one that I was being careful with. It was crazy. So anyways, point is, I also got better with my natural sentence structure, grammar, things like that fast.
Everything comes together as more you do it.
That's right.
We're going to switch gears, and I'm going to give you some easy questions now. How about that?
Sounds great.
So here's the lightning round. Don't think too much about it. These are fun. Let's see what comes up to mind. Are you ready?
About as ready as I'll ever be.
We're doing this. Oh. Fall or spring?
This lightning round? I gotta think about these things. Oh my gosh. Fall.
Okay, the perfectionist in you is kicking in because I'm like, no, these are easy.
Wrong.
I don't know. Now I'm kind of worried about these with you. Apple cider or hot chocolate?
Hot chocolate.
Nice. Mountain or beach?
Mountain.
There we go. I'm sorry, this is going to be a tricky one.
Oh no.
I know. If you could be any Disney villain, who would you be?
Oh my gosh. Pass.
Afterwards, I was like, oh, she's going to struggle with this one.
Oh my gosh. No, like that would take me a couple of days to like work through and pros and cons. You know what first popped into my head? This is ridiculous. Scar from Lion King, but I have no reasoning behind that. That's just the one that came into my head first.
You know, we're going with that. It's the first thing that popped into your mind. No thoughts behind it. You can analyze it later.
Okay.
So here's your last one. Hopefully not too hard. This is a little easier. What is your favorite place to write?
I write in my bed every time I write, and I've tried writing in other places, and it doesn't work for me. So I'm going to say my bed.
I like it. I write on my couch, so I understand. Not a big issue. Hi, Madam. It has been a pleasure to have you. Tell us, where can our listeners find you?
Everywhere.
Nice.
I am on just about every social media platform you can think of. You can go to adelryan.com/follow, and there's a list there. I prefer to interact with my readers in my Facebook group, which is called Adele Ryan's Genus, Genus. Those are the main places you can find me.
And where can they find your books?
You can also find those on my website, but I am on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited to find all my books. You can go to adelryan.com/books and also go to my Facebook group, I would say, too, because I keep stuff there organized.
You are a definitely organized person, so I know that it'll be easy to find your stuff in your website. I have no doubt about this. Madame, it has been a pleasure. Do you have any closing remarks for us?
I appreciate you having me on here. I have really enjoyed it. I was very, very nervous to read my story aloud. I am sure I didn't do it any kind of justice, but it was fun. It was a good experience, and I appreciate being given the opportunity. Thank you.
It has been such a pleasure. I love the fact that you wrote your story. I enjoyed it. It was fun to listen to, and I love this conversation. And to our listeners, go ahead, give this podcast a like, share it, give us a review, invite people to join the community. Let's grow together. And once again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us another episode of Inside the Minds of Authors. We'll see you again next week for another amazing author. Thank you, everyone.